everybody. Deb, John, Mr. Tony Soter here.
Icon.
And apparently, Luke Allen Wild of Soter's mentor in a way. But I was just saying to Deb and telling Tony, Luke said to us one day that the reason that Luke is a winemaker is because of this amazing person here. So there you go. And I know that that's true from, my cooperage days. And it's true for many people on both sides of the state border, as we said. But, your vision, your thoughtfulness, your dedication, and your commitment and what you're looking for and the idea of it through all this time in this industry is felt and known throughout. The impressions are still there.
I appreciate that, really. Just try to do what you believe in and hope you don't make too many enemies in the process. Maybe some folks will be able to learn from my mistakes as well as my successes.
And it's cool that you phrase it like that too, Tony, because it was something that Di was talking about this morning about, when getting started in the 80s, there weren't the university level and the classroom situations, like, really learning it trial by fire.
Definitely the School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah,
exactly.
Which, has its own degree and situation, especially with something that is one shot a year, and every year is going to be different anyway. But learning through that, but I think, just like you said, that's how you get it, and being in touch with that land that you're farming and that land, that connection with all. Someone once said, how do you describe the French term terroir? And I said, it's really it was explained to me this way. Get your little movie director, Ron Howard, camera shot, and take, look at the vineyard like this with the trees and the birds and the squirrels and all the stuff. Now, in that frame, go 365 days. Everything that happened in there, that's terroir. And I'm like, that works. We get in the cellar and there's some stuff, but go.
So when you started, tell me how you started. I guess I don't even know exactly how you started.
Well, that's just old ancient history, but let me just preface that by saying what I'd really like to talk about is how I'm relevant today, not 50 years ago.
Right. Yes.
But to answer your question, I got a degree in philosophy from Pomona College in Southern California, and somewhere along the line, the epiphany was that I was really not wanting to go to law school, and I didn't know what else I was going to do, but I had developed a little interest in wine thanks to a classics professor that I was taking a class from, and he did wine tasting on the after hours kind of thing. I had the bug, so
that's cool.
And while I was trying to figure out what I could do to make a living, I decided I'd at least indulge myself in this thing I knew I was smitten with, wine. And so I worked in a bottle shop, and then I did some touring in Napa, and I came back and just packed my bags in my little car and drove to Napa and started knocking on doors to get a job. My first harvest was 75.
Wow.
So it goes back there a ways. Yeah, so I'll be coming up on 50 harvests.
Wow.
Probably for the first, I don't know, it was only a few years before somebody gave me the keys and said, you can be the winemaker. It was at Chapelet in 1977. So I've only been there 2 years. That's how desperate people were for warm bodies that wanted to make wine. And all of that changed, of course, as Davis started turning out people and more wineries were built and more winemakers were needed. And they got a lot of my peers went to Davis and did their master's degrees. Dave Ramey, Kathy Corson, just to name a couple that come to mind right away. Same vintage people working there. Anyway, I probably spent the first decade really thinking about the craft of what happens in the cellar. But even in the first years, it was apparent to me that something was happening in the field that was important to the success, right? And then I just decided to change boots from the rubber boots to the dirt boots and start farming the wine. It's not a new term. Wine growing is what I like to call it, and it's just an integrated process of growing grapes continually through the winemaking process. And you learn that you can actually make it easier on yourself as a winemaker if you can grow better grapes.
Yeah, what's happening here?
You can change the flavor of Sauvignon Blanc from cat piss to flowers,
Right.
if you can farm it right.
Yeah.
So another just example, but and it wasn't too long when I started to actually get involved with farming with some authority, not just ancillary as the pest winemaker, but a lot of farmers call the biggest pest in a vineyard a winemaker. But
Yeah.
so.
Go away. Don't come out here in the middle, right?
But once I had a chance to have some authority in farming situations when I was doing my consulting, this would have been 1984 in the Spotswood Vineyard. I started there in 82, but I got a chance to manage the vineyard as well as make the wines. And that's when I had a chance to say to the owners, you all have been spraying this insecticide as a regular activity for the last who knows how long, but I don't want to do that anymore. Can I make the case that we'll still have a crop if we don't? And I convinced the owners that was likely the case, and sure enough, we survived. And the insect problem was half the next year, and a quarter the following year, and inconsequential the year after. The natural biological predators of the pest insect had a chance to take a foothold, and they balanced the ecology, and it's never had a spray on it ever since.
Yes.
It's a sweet story, but it was a pretty straightforward one. Luckily, because we understand the biology of that particular pest, the whitefly.
Yeah.
There's a lot that we still don't understand in terms of organisms that are in our vineyards and in our soils, but what I love about today's awareness of our human biome is really great. Help us understand what Steiner was more intuiting than anything else when he talked about in biodynamics. People would make fun of him about fairies and spirits. Well, what might have been at work as fairies and spirits could be trillions of organisms that were unseen, but definitely part of this very complex system of plants communicating, plants taking up nutrients, and making them available by means of additional organisms in the soil. The fungi and the bacteria, and so on. So.
Well, and Dan Rinke said something very interesting when we were talking about this earlier today, and everyone's going to hear the word community and then talking about this obviously very cool coffee group that has grown into what we're doing here today. But that it's not just the ecology and the environmental and the things that are going on in the vineyard and the life stuffs, but also in the barrel and in the cellar, and that just continues to be its own circle and community of life stuff going on, that it doesn't just happen out there, it also is happening here and in each step, and it's that it's that thing.
Start with clean soil and keep the process simple.
Well, and just the whole system, just keep it.
I'm talking like I've done it before.
Well, in the early days, to do organics, the key objective was to get the poisons out.
Yes.
The more evolved view of it that we enjoy and practice today is that it's not just enough to keep the poisons out, but you have to practice a means of regenerating the depletion of the soil that you're using, right? And then one of the tenets of biodynamics is that it's a whole farm thing, because that really acknowledges just how broad the involvement is. When you talk about the whole system, it's It's from the dirt underneath the vines to the vine foliage ecology to the organisms that are stuck on the grapes when they come into the winery and how those transpire and create a signature on the wine altogether.
Yeah.
The holistic part of the biodynamics really is that there's a whole ecology that your vineyard happens to share with a lot of other things. And the more other things there, the more balanced and healthy the system will be. In contrast to a monoculture, right? Which in the worst cases is a monoculture with a lot of pesticides. That is a kind of sterile environment that's really out of balance. Right? It's wonderful to think that back, can I tell a silly story?
Please do.
Yeah. So we started farming the vineyard at Spotswood in 1984 organically, and a few years later it was certified, and it has been ever since. But in the process of trying to make something out of that distinction, organic wines were just beginning to be on the marketplace, and a lot of them were pretty bad.
Sure.
And so then Mondavi's press people came out with a statement that said, well, organic's all well and good, but we don't believe we can actually pursue our highest pursuits, which is to make world-class wine comparable to the great French chateaus by practicing organics. They're mutually exclusive. And I just took that as a kind of, well, you just threw down the gauntlet and we'll see.
Absolutely.
And of course, the Spotswood wines are super distinguished over the years and continue to be today with full dedication to that. So it was just I think a regrettable thing that they published, and I'm sure they'd rather not know that or be reminded of it even today. But I laugh a little bit because the bad organic wines of the time would probably today be called natural wines. And we have a whole category for funk that we didn't have back then.
Get it in there.
And the other irony, I think, is a number of the natural wine producers aren't even committed to organics. So that to me is a hypocritical kind of stance. But I won't go down that road because I don't know how much more natural you have to be if you're fully practicing and certified organic and biodynamic
It's
and
pretty,
regenerative.
it's pretty transparent right there. And today is such a special day with this collection of the great growers and who is here with younger and those that have been in the industry for a while. And I just think this idea of you guys getting together without all the constraints and the pull away of here comes this client or here's this or whatever, but you can all have this very honest conversation with each other and what can be learned or how's it going for you up on that end of the valley? What's going on for you? What do you think about this? We had 17 days of sun in January this year. It only had one snow. Where are we? How's it gonna go? And that community, that talking to each other, I think is something so special that is also organic and how it comes together. And then for that to come into something, we're going to continue the puns, into fruition of something like today, having this organically grown grape conference and this coming together because of that organically grown grape network. I just really think it's cool and amazing. And the fact that the people want to know, and now it's like, let's get that word out.
Yeah, and people are so much more curious about how things are made. What are you doing with it before I get it? Yeah.
I've been waiting for that train to come in for 3 decades. Because as I said earlier, the wines in Napa didn't really have that as an aspiration. They wanted to be rewarded for their great work in other ways, and certainly that's part of their success. I just proved at Spotswood we didn't have to ignore the commitment to responsible farming and organic agriculture in the process. But those wines they never garnered those prices because they were organic. They were because they met other sort of standards of aesthetics in wine. But today we make the Planet Oregon wines. That's the logo, and one of our 2 products is made entirely from organic grapes, the rosé, sparkling rosé, and I can't put it on the label just yet, but we'll work on certifying the winery such that it can be. But I think my point is that it's positioned to really appeal to a generation that standard means something. You know?
Yes.
And Planet Oregon also gives 1% of its revenues to the planet. We're part of the 1% for the Planet program, and trying to give back, obviously, and try to keep the viability of agriculture alive, let alone any kind of agriculture. But we really do have a different audience today, the generation that is willing to measure, look at the back label, measure the way they spend their money on more than value, and that the value is important because it meets certain standards, right? It tastes good. I like it. Mm-hmm. My price is right, and it's responsibly made. And it doesn't come with poisons and toxics, and it's good for the earth, or at least not harmful, right? So that's a fair deal. I've been waiting for that consumer base to come into a meaningful way in the marketplace for a long time, and I'm glad to see it's happening.
Yeah,
we're really excited about that.
That must be thrilling.
Your point about the group here, it's really consistent with the collegial way that Oregon wine industry always was from the early days and continues to be. We try to work together to float all the boats and problem solve all the way along, right?
Yeah.
We didn't figure out how to make Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir 40 years ago was more often atrocious than delicious.
Sure.
And today it's consistently good because we've learned so much. And a lot of it has been learning together.
Mm-hmm. And the Chardonnay factor. And the Chardonnay factor.
Yeah, that's just the same story being retold now, this many years later. But now the Chardonnays are just killer. I really love them. Yeah. It's the ones from around here, anyway. Mm-hmm. Got to be chauvinistic and believe in your place.
Absolutely.
It's easy to believe in this place. And when you know that everybody does come together. Thinking about some of the chefs we talked to up in Portland, that someone might need a helping hand or this or that, and you look on the line at somebody and you're like, holy crap, that's so-and-so. Just head down, just getting it done, helping each other out, because that's what we do here. Those little scrappy DIY, whatever, all the things that we say, but it's true. And it's because people are honest and real and care and give a damn. You know what I mean?
And we just feel very, very privileged to tell that story, in print and on camera, and to just continue to let people know what's going on out here and the commitment, to clean everything.
And the community.
Yeah, and then the other thing, though, is connecting the consumer with the product. It's saying, a story will talk about, like in the summertime when we'll talk about Soter, then that person knows that they can go to Soter knowing already about, all that's gone on with Soter, and they make that educated choice to buy your wine. And I'm thrilled to be part of that. I just find it to be so dynamic and satisfying.
Well, your publication is absolutely beautiful, and just the sheer existence of it is a bonus to everyone out here and to every consumer in Portland that can get their hands on it.
Well, you're very kind. You're very kind.
Such a beautiful thing that you do. A depth of story, beautiful presentation, great writing.
Well, thank you.
Good editing too, I think.
Yeah. Do what?
Good editing.
Yeah. Well, I'm telling you that. 7th time I see something, I'm ready to scream, but yes. Well, thank you so much for letting me grab you off the porch and come in here and talk to us. This has been very delightful. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, when I saw the car out in the driveway with the MSR on the license plate, I'm like, yeah, I know who's in there. I'm going to go say hi. So thank you for agreeing to pop in here.
Sure, thank you.
And that, it's awesome, you being a part of this and all that's going on today and having the people and the public out. And I know you're now some more media going and getting the field out there, and the weather shined on us a bit today, but
aren't we fortunate?
Yeah, especially after it was Oregon yesterday. It was Oregon yesterday. Not that this isn't, but
Good.
so. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Deb.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Dean.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it all. And you guys, I can't tell you how cool today is and who we've been able to talk to and how this got put together and just and how honored we are to be able to use our platforms in written and digital to get the word out and tell the stories and help be that to be, how we can work with you guys and all this stuff. Like, let's just get it all together and do it. Thank you guys. Yeah. Thanks, man.